Good morning. It is Wednesday, the 19th of March, the day before spring officially arrives. As we take a look, we're going to talk about some spring-like conditions, some crazy weather going on across the central U.S. So much to break down for you as we get into today's edition of the Weather Desk. It's today's top weather headlines, and we bring them to you every single day right here from the 13 News Now studios in Southeast Virginia in Norfolk, and we serve all of Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller, and it's good to be with you. I want to jump into the top headlines today, some of the topics we're going to be tackling. First, we've got the latest on the major storm system in the central United States. Let me tell you, this thing is producing blizzard conditions right now across parts of the country. There have been massive dust storms. We've got even a couple severe thunderstorm warnings earlier with this system back across Iowa, and it's going to bring more changes to parts of the country. I'll talk about how it will eventually impact us. The next topic, we're going to start seeing so long to frosty and freezing conditions. We've got some of the final frost and freeze dates. A closer look at that here in the mid-Atlantic. We'll let you know when we can start looking forward to more consistent warm days. And we have spring, as I mentioned, arriving officially. As you take a look, astronomical spring starts tomorrow with the vernal equinox. So along with spring comes increasing pollen. And we're going to say welcome back to the crew that arrived with the splashdown off the Florida coast yesterday. We've got a recap on that as well. So some fun topics, but some really interesting topics, and I do want to start with that big storm system in the central part of the country. Here's a look at Kansas. Here's Missouri. You see Iowa here, and this area here, this heavy snow from north central and western parts of Kansas across south central and eastern parts of Nebraska up into western Iowa and southern Minnesota. They have, in some places, blizzard-like conditions, not only heavy snow, but very powerful winds as well. So I can go ahead and put this all into motion so you can get a good look at what's going on here with the development of the system. And you do have this very strong wind field down out ahead of this as well. The snow kind of curling around on the backside. They had the snow yesterday in Colorado. Colorado's still dealing with a little bit of snow along the front range, and again, very windy conditions there. But the system is working to the east and will eventually pull more to the northeast. So let's show you where this thing is located, and we'll put the winds on here, kind of enhance the view of what's going on. You can see just off to the north of Kansas City, we have an area of low pressure spinning right there in the central part of the map. So as we take a look here, again, this has been tracking to the east and it's moving to the northeast. There's the area of low pressure. Again, you can see the front that is out there extending down through Missouri and into Arkansas, eastern Texas as well. I'll tell you what, if the director wants to take me back on camera, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this wind field. You can see the winds coming up from the south across the Mississippi River Valley and the Ohio River Valley. They're seeing those southerly winds. It's getting increasingly windy here, and it's been very dry. We'll come back to the burn concerns and the red flag warnings, restricted burning for these areas. We've seen the winds now shifting around, but they've been dealing with all kinds of trouble back on the western side of this system as well. This is going to continue to move off to the northeast. The snow, and I'll show you the forecast map for where the snow is headed in a moment, but it's going to move off. We're eventually going to see chances for rain as that front drags through our area late tomorrow. So this is where this thing is right now. Again, you can see Kansas City right here along I-70. Just north of that as you get up towards St. Joseph and back up towards areas up around Tarkio, and you get into this part of Nebraska and southern southwestern Iowa. That's very close to that low. Those winds are whipping. Now, I do want to take you to a live view that we have from Hutchinson, Kansas, and I just picked a view that we had live access to, so we'll go there very quickly and show you. It's wet there. It's been very windy. This is one of the areas under high wind warning. And you take a look. Again, this is a smaller town back in Kansas, but there's almost no one on the streets here. I mean, you can see traffic lights. There's maybe a car or two. You see a couple headlights, but people just aren't out. They don't mess mess around with these high wind warnings in Kansas. And while this camera is fixed, we've been watching at times the rain and the precipitation coming in and then blowing off the camera box. If you don't have strong winds, you don't see that stuff moving along, and that's kind of what we've been witnessing. Again, very little activity there. It looks like there's a car or two out there, but there's just not much going on as people are riding this out. Now, again, that's Hutchinson, Kansas, and they're really in the break right now, but they're going to see some precipitation a little later on. I want to show you New Mexico because there the big issue has been the wind and blowing dust. Dust storms have raged across New Mexico as transit authorities had to close major highways to avoid pileups. This is video from someone's car on the interstate between Santa Fe and Albuquerque. Again, like we told you yesterday, when those heavy wind gusts were sweeping, again, it was just blowing across the bare soil. It picks up the dust, and it really cuts the visibility down to near zero, and then it coats everything. So those dust storms, a serious situation back in New Mexico. All right, we'll take a look at that pileup. Just incredible to see that. All right, I want to come back to the maps now, and we're going to take a look at where this system is going. And again, you see the high wind warnings that have shifted a little farther to the east. Now, today, we're looking at the high wind warnings from Iowa, those areas that we're seeing the snow, blizzard conditions because it's so windy, and then they've got that heavy blowing snow. Back down across Kansas, as I mentioned, from Hutchinson on westward, you have the high wind warnings. And in these areas, they could see gusts 60 to 70 miles per hour. Those are not thunderstorm outflow gusts or anything like that. Those are just a product of high pressure here, strong low pressure there over a very short area. So you get very powerful winds coming in. So those high wind warnings from Iowa through northern Missouri, back across Kansas and Nebraska, down through the panhandles, Oklahoma and Texas, and eastern Colorado. This area is shaded in this lighter kind of shade of yellow here, this paler shade. That is a wind advisory, and there winds could gust up over 50 miles per hour. So a lot of wind in the central U.S. I mentioned with the dry conditions, fire danger is very high. Southern Illinois, Missouri into Arkansas, also Oklahoma and Texas. They have red flag warnings out through the day today. And we still have red flag warnings out for parts of West Virginia into eastern Kentucky and southern Ohio. So we'll continue to watch all of this. Again, windy conditions, dry. This area is prime for trouble. If there are wildfires or fires get out of control, they will spread very, very rapidly. So that's what's going on. Now, the snow potential with this system. I told you about the blizzard conditions back across parts of Nebraska and Iowa back into Kansas. Look at how the snow is forecast to pile up. So we start with the blank map going forward through the day today and through 8 o'clock tomorrow. You'll see the heaviest snow over western and north central Iowa, potentially over 12 inches in some areas, 6 to 12 in this darker blue swath across Wisconsin and into the UP of Michigan, and then up into Canada, some heavier amounts of snow there. Again, if I can come back on camera, I'll talk a little bit more because I want to show you again that heaviest band right in here across the north central U.S. You can see for parts of Michigan down through Indiana, Ohio, there could be some spattered, kind of hit and miss spatterings of snow, light accumulations, but it is potential here. Even in West Virginia, you could have in some areas 3 to 6 inches in the highest elevation and down along the Blue Ridge. So this whole area, we'll continue to watch some more snow for the Northeast as we get into the upcoming weekend. Let's show you how this breaks down using the European model. Now, that snow forecast I just showed you, that was the American model, the GFS, or Global Forecast System. This is the European model, and you'll see, again, it brings the rain back across parts of Missouri as we go through the afternoon today. That snow really focused farther north, and the system will continue to march off to the east-northeast. So as the system tracks along, greatest potential for snow in this area with the Euro. Rain showers advancing here. Keep in mind, we've got a front that extends out from the area of low pressure, and that's what's going to push through our area. So we're going to be dry today here in the mid-Atlantic. It's a beautiful day. Temperatures up into the mid-60s, upper 60s to low and mid-70s farther inland, a little cooler at the beaches. Tomorrow's going to be warm because we've got a southerly flow up ahead of this, and it's going to warm up tomorrow into the 70s widespread for us. But as this front gets closer, we're going to see by Thursday afternoon heading into the evening. Good chances for scattered showers and maybe a few stronger storms as well. So those come through. We are not outlooked for severe weather, so that's good news. But I do encourage you to check back with us, because as we go tomorrow and maybe even later today, the Storm Prediction Center is going to continue to look at this. They may say, you know what, maybe it was worthy of a level 1 risk if this front is strong enough and we get enough daytime heating. Wouldn't be shocked to see that. At this point, so far this morning, they've just had general thunderstorms, and that's probably it, mostly showers with a few embedded stronger storms. But I just want to make you aware, to check back and see if anything changes. So that comes through Thursday evening. By early Friday, we're in the clear, but it will be windy and colder along the mid-Atlantic. You see the snow for the Northeast, and all those areas that were hit so hard with the wind and the snow and across parts of Kansas, Nebraska, up into Iowa. These areas will get some relief heading into the weekend. So that's how things play out with the European model. All right. Wanted to go back with spring arriving, okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. You get into the spring severe storm season, and this is just a reminder of how many warnings we had. Taylor and I talked about this yesterday, but look at the outbreak. This was between March 14th and the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. The one area that we had, and again, over 300 warnings across the country in that 3-day time period, there were over 50 confirmed tornadoes. So not just warnings for rotation, but actual confirmed touchdown tornadoes. There were over 50. There was one in our area, and the impact, again, really feeling it. This community in northeastern North Carolina still picking up the pieces after a confirmed EF1 tornado ripped through Perquimans County early Monday morning. Winds were as high as 110 miles per hour, and it left more than a dozen homes damaged and leveled at least 3 of those. Alex Littlehales reports on the next steps for families who lost everything.
When he looks out his window,
every time I look out the window and see this, all I can say is I'm thankful. Everybody's still alive. And when you see this, I mean, you would think it's impossible for 6, 8 victims, 12 victims, whatever, walked away from this.
Jeff Cooper only wonders why his house was spared when his neighbors lost so much.
Everything. All you do is say, come on, let's work together.
Just steps away from Cooper's back door is what's left of 3 houses leveled by Monday's tornado. Tuesday, tractors move up and down Longview Estates Road, cleaning up and clearing debris from the land owned by Mr. Cole.
We're going to clean everything else up, the houses that got damaged by our houses, and now we got to go back and repair all the damage that was done.
Cole has owned the land under these homes for roughly 20 years. He says replacement trailers are on the way for the homes which can't be salvaged. And for those who escaped the worst of the destruction, words are still hard to find in times like this.
Nothing but God. We're very thankful. I had me and my wife and my 2 sons. Of course, they're grown up, but just to think they could be gone is a very sobering thought.
In Woodville, Alex Littlehales for 13 News Now.
Again, so tough to see those images, but the community is really already coming together, and we'll continue to keep an eye to that situation down there and let you know how things recover. What I want to talk to you about, again, you just saw a just prime example of the types of weather we can get in spring. You get into the severe season. We have the official start. The vernal equinox. Spring begins at 5:01 tomorrow morning. So we think about this. There's the chances for storms, but we're also transitioning to warmer weather and getting away from the threat of frost and freezing. Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandagis has a look at some important frost and freeze dates.
Understanding the average last frost and freeze dates is essential for gardeners in Southeast Virginia and Northeast North Carolina to optimize planting schedules and safeguard crops from late season cold snaps. Let's start with the time frames in which we can typically expect to experience the last freeze, where temperatures dip to 32 degrees. Norfolk averages the last freeze around St. Patrick's Day, while Suffolk is about 10 days later. And it's not until the final few days of March that Williamsburg and Virginia Beach experience theirs. It's the later few days of March that Elizabeth City, Edenton, and Cape Charles need to be aware of possible late season freezes, while Newport News sees an average last freeze around the beginning of April. Now, shifting to last potential frost dates, where the temperatures dip into the mid-30s, Norfolk right at the end of March, while Suffolk and Williamsburg, as well as Virginia Beach, run the possibility of a frost into almost mid-April. Now, Elizabeth City, Edenton, Newport News, and Cape Charles all average a potential last frost in early to mid-April, but could be as late as early May. Now, cool season crops can be planted shortly after the last frost date. Examples include lettuce, spinach, and peas. However, with warm season crops, it's advisable to wait until the risk of frost has significantly diminished. Crops like tomatoes, peppers, and beans should be planted later in April or even in early May. While average last frost dates provide a general framework, if you're getting ready to plant, be sure to pay attention to the forecast to be informed of any threats for frosts or freezes.
All right, Tim, really appreciate that update and some important dates there to think about. Again, we're into spring, and that means warmer days and eventually so long to frost and freezing. Now, we say so long to that, but we have to say hello to issues with our allergies. And in Virginia Beach, experts say the allergy season could be worse than usual this year. The Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America ranks the most challenging cities for seasonal allergies. For the third year in a row, Wichita, Kansas takes the top spot. Virginia Beach lands at number 11 due to high grass pollen counts. But as weather patterns globally change, experts say your symptoms could stick around longer.
One trend that we're noticing overall is allergy seasons are starting earlier and lasting longer, and that's largely attributable to climate change. So there was a study done a few years ago that found that pollen seasons in particular start about 20 days earlier and last 10 days longer from the time frame of 1990 to 2018. So overall, about 30 extra days. And most of that, about 50% of that increase in the pollen seasons is attributable to climate change, and about 8% of the increase in pollen concentration, so sort of how strong the pollen is attributable to climate change. So that is sort of a broad trend that we're noticing when we look at the research, and then even when we hear from people with asthma and allergies, myself included, we hear that folks who may not have had seasonal allergies in the past may start having symptoms within the past few years, or maybe if they were able to control their symptoms with over-the-counter allergy medicine in the past, it might not be cutting it now. So we hear just anecdotally all the time about the impact that these extended and more intense pollen seasons are having on people. The good news is that there are a lot of really simple, easy steps that you can take every day to help manage your exposure to pollen. So things like removing your shoes before you enter your home, washing your hands after you've been outside, showering at night to remove pollen before you get into bed. These are, again, just really easy steps that you can do to help reduce your exposure. So every year, the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, or AFA, we release our Allergy Capitals report. And what we do is we look at the 100 most populous cities in the contiguous United States, and we rank them from 1 to 100 based on a few different factors. So the first is tree, grass, and weed pollen scores. The second is over-the-counter allergy medicine use, and the third is availability of board-certified allergist immunologists. But sort of a surprise that we saw this year was New Orleans. It moved up to number 2 from number 34 last year, and that's really due to a significantly higher wheat pollen score. So we know that this November was the warmest in Louisiana's history. So that really just created an environment for the weed pollen to really grow. And that was kind of exacerbated by the moisture from Hurricane Francine. So that is just a prime example of some of the climate impacts that can really change where a city ranks year over year.
Really interesting stuff there. I can tell you, as I've gotten a little more seasoned, we'll say, not older, older. Anyway, my allergies have gotten worse here, and I've noticed maybe a little earlier start, as they were mentioning, across Virginia Beach and Norfolk and Southeast Virginia. Again, it really depends where you are, and I know we have viewers tuning in from all across the country and really around the world, so maybe a little different where you are, but I can tell you our pollen season here is getting longer, and I've been feeling it. Not surprised at all to find today's tree pollen is high. Juniper, cedar, birch, maple, all of these contributing to the high pollen counts with the tree pollen. We're not seeing it coating the cars yet at its worst. You know, we'll see actually almost like a green dust, all that pollen settling in on cars and things. Hasn't gotten quite that bad, but we are looking at high levels right now. Grass and weeds, don't have to worry about those yet. They'll come a little later in the season. Mold is low. That's a look at the pollen update. All right, we'll keep you updated on that. We're back down in Florida here because we had our astronauts, our 2 NASA astronauts returning home after what was supposed to be an 8-day mission unexpectedly turned into more than 9 months in space. ABC's Nicole D'Antonio is in Washington with details on their long-awaited return.
This morning, a safe return home for 2 NASA astronauts who splashed down off Florida's Gulf Coast after an extended mission in space.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
NASA's Mission Control in Houston erupting in cheers at this moment as the SpaceX Dragon capsule arrived home with astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore safely on board. A recovery team pulling the capsule onto a recovery ship.
We're overjoyed. I watched every crew member come out of the vehicle today. Post-landing, it was great to watch Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander come out of Dragon and smile and wave as they came out of the vehicle.
The astronauts had been on the International Space Station since last summer after an 8-day stopover stretched into a nearly 9-month mission. Wilmore rejected the idea that they needed to be rescued.
There's many ways to characterize it. Stranded, I don't think, is one of them because we're on the space station. Stuck is not one of them because we're on the space station. Now, had we not made it to the space station, there would have been many adjectives that you could have characterized this by.
NASA said in an emergency scenario, they could have used one of their spacecrafts docked to the station, but were waiting for another crew to relieve them. Wilmore, who has 2 daughters, one in college and another in high school, talked about the toll of being away for so long.
I'm going to miss most of her senior year in high school.
Meanwhile, Williams broke the female record for most time on spacewalks, 62 hours and 6 minutes. Her family filled with pride.
I'm very proud of her for being such a role model.
I think she's inspired a lot of young girls all over the world. I think she's touched a lot of people.
Now, along with Williams and Wilmore, the capsule was also carrying another astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut who took the spacecraft to the International Space Station in September. Nicole D'Antonio, ABC News, Washington.
And as we took a look at the actual splashdown at the beginning of that package, you could see the conditions were really nice. They didn't have a lot of wave action there. Here off of our local coast in Virginia Beach, we do still have small craft advisories up for the wave action. The seas have been between 5 and 6 feet or so. Still expected to remain choppy despite the lighter winds. And we are going to see potential gale conditions on the bay tomorrow and tomorrow night, really tomorrow night into Friday, because that storm system with that front is coming through, and we do anticipate those winds really picking up into Friday. So it's flat on the bay right now in the Chesapeake Bay. Again, our coastal waters, Virginia Beach, rougher, and they will get worse as we go with that storm system coming through late in the day tomorrow and tomorrow night. All right, let's get into the forecast here. We'll take a look at our future cast. You can see the sunshine across Southeast Virginia today. Maybe a few fair weather clouds late. As we head through the evening hours, we're going to see variably cloudy or partly cloudy to mostly cloudy conditions. There'll be breaks as well. Tomorrow morning, we start off with a little bit of sunshine, but more clouds, and eventually here comes the rain. Rain chances likely as we go through the afternoon, initially out to the west into the northwest, but they're going to find their way closer to Hampton Roads as we get into the evening, and additional showers and maybe a few isolated storms in the mix as well. As we look ahead to tomorrow evening around 6:45, 7 o'clock are good chances for showers and storms. By 8:30 or 9, they should be clearing the coast and then pulling away after that. As we look ahead to Friday, look for the clearing skies, but it will be windy. Notice those winds gusting on that little dial up here to the right side of your screen and looking up on the top. There you could see some winds gusting for Norfolk, and that's all that is. It's just our forecast wind gusts for Norfolk. We could see some gusts up around 30 miles per hour on Friday. So breezy and obviously much cooler. We're looking at 70s tomorrow and then 50s for the day on Friday. All right, here's what we have today. Again, mid-60s for Norfolk and Town Center and Virginia Beach. At the ocean front, more like 61, 62 degrees. Low 70s, Chesapeake, Franklin, 75, 74 in Suffolk. On the peninsula, beautiful around Williamsburg, mostly sunny, 71, 68 for Newport News and Hampton. Gloucester at 67. We'll see temperatures in the 60s for most of the eastern shore, maybe upper 50s around Chincoteague. Kill Devil Hill's a little cooler as well. Temps closer to 70 around Elizabeth City, and low to mid 70s Hertford and Edenton. Overnight tonight, lows near 50. Increasing clouds. It will be mild overnight, and then breezy with showers developing during the afternoon. I just showed you those on our futurecast. I expect showers and maybe some storms as we get into early Thursday evening. Those winds starting to gust more. We'll see windy conditions on Friday behind that front. I mentioned the wind shifting around, and we could see some gusts up around 30 miles per hour on Friday. 58 the high there, 66 on Saturday, low 60s Sunday, and we'll see a few more isolated showers potentially later Monday and into Tuesday. You know, the best way to stay up on all of the weather is downloading the 13 News Now mobile app. When you do that, you have access to all of our forecasts, special weather updates as they come in. We share them, any special breaking weather news, if we have any severe weather coverage, it all gets sent out through our app. So download the app. You can scan that QR code and have absolute access to all of our weather information here from our studios in Southeast Virginia. All right, that's going to do it again. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. I'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with another one. Have a great day.